Cool. Vladimir Putin is the Kremlin. Vladimir Putin is the new Tsar. And canceling a narrative of an overthrow of the Tsar and romanticizing the time of those Tsars helps Vladimir Putin consolidate power, helps Vladimir Putin have the economic policy he wants, helps Vladimir Putin achieve more power in Eastern Europe. And those will be my 3 points of analysis today. So, firstly, a little bit about the mech. We suggest a complete rejection of both revolutions of 1917. We want statues of Lenin and of Stalin removed from state institutions and from cities in general. We want all of those symbols out of Russia, and we will teach in schools and we will preach in television that every single part of the 1917 revolution was a tragedy that cost the lives of billions of people and facilitated a regime which was worse than the glorious times of the Tsar. To contrast that, we will romanticize and emphasize the good times that Russia had under Tsars, like both Tsars Alexander, when it expanded, when it protected all of those people who speak Russian and who are ethnically Russian in the world, and when it stood as a great beacon of its ethnicity and of its nationhood in the world. Personally, I think this would be a terrible thing for the world, but for Putin, this would be amazing. So, first, why would this be effective in creating why can the Russian government be effective in creating this narrative? Firstly, we say that people in general hate communism more than they love it, because all of them have suffered tremendously personally under it, whether it be directly under the power of the state, or just because they can see the extreme poverty that was there, the lack of opportunity, the lack of choice, the cronyism, the fact that the deep, deep unfairness. And we say that this rides on that narrative in a very excellent way. How do we know this? Just by contacting Russian expats everywhere in the world, you can see this. Secondly, we say the Kremlin has huge control of information in the entire Russian-speaking world, and in Russia in particular. They control the news, they control the education, and they can be extremely effective in manipulating all the information to only emphasize the negative elements of that revolution. How do we know that they can be so effective in doing this? Just look at how Russian media is so effective in portraying to Russians the West. Russians think that according to all surveys, Russians are in love with Putin, support him extremely, and think that the West would be that the ways of the West would be extremely bad for them. Therefore, we think that efficacy is a non-issue for the Kremlin in this debate. Firstly, why does specifically a narrative of a violent popular revolution threatening to Putin? We say that Putin wants to be the Tsar, and that his ticket for being the Tsar, his mandate for being the Tsar, is twofold. Firstly, national. Protecting all Russians, advancing Russian nationalism. We know this by the way Putin expresses himself in media, but also we know this because of the actions in Georgia, because of the actions in Ukraine aggressively to protect Russian citizens in order to facilitate being stronger. Also, if they try to tell you that Putin is some dictator which doesn't care about the populace at all, we say that his actions attest directly to the contrary. Putin is constantly concerned about his popular support. Putin is constantly vicious to every political rival. If he was not afraid of the people costing him his rule, he would not be so vicious in maintaining their support. Second ticket for Putin, a professional one. That's why we see all those shirtless photos of Putin, all those Putin is a better hunter than the best hunter in the world, Putin scoring a goal on the Russian national team goalkeeper. We say that both of those are the mandate for Putin. What isn't the mandate for Putin is anything ideological. In fact, ideology by its very nature threatens Putin because it is always bigger than the individual. And Putin wants to be the biggest individual, the only one who can protect the great Russia. We say that he wants to teach and accustom the people to the idea that power lies in the top. And we say that when you condition people to that idea, when you teach them that only the power is only in the top, the wisdom is only in the top, they are unable to think otherwise. When they grow to believe that power is to the top and that authority is to be trusted from a very early age, they internalize that for the vast majority of people. Why is the communist narrative such a threat to that? Because it is a story, like poison, within the head of every Russian, saying that you, the country, belongs to you. Russia belongs to you. All the money, all the goods, all the natural resources belong to you. And you are bigger than the government. And you know how you take it back if you are unhappy, with power, with violence, with force. This is an idea so powerful that it facilitated the original revolutions of 1917, and it is threatening, and it may threaten to facilitate those same revolutions in Putin's Russia again. So therefore, if he erases that, he limits people's abilities to think, he becomes the new Tsar, and creates a generation of people who could never even contemplate revolution. Go.
As much as debaters find it easy to rely on Putin's strongman analysis, the Kremlin also has long-term interest in its survival in the long term. There, do you think it's healthy to build a cult of personality and deny the legitimate authority of predecessors to the state?
So, firstly, we think that that doesn't engage with the case in any way, and that we will have to get an answer for that entire case. Secondly, both my next 2 points. Why the Kremlin needs more capitalism. We say that Russia is in an economical crisis, and in the world, it is proven that the sort of financial policies done under communism are not very effective in solving it. However, Putin has a problem that because communist ideas are still so strong in Russia, the economic policy that the Kremlin may want to pursue is perceived as toxic. We say that this crucially cancels this out because we suggest a complete rejection of that communism. They may say, well, if you're so powerful, just educate the people to that. But no, the communist idea is so powerful that it will be in the back of their heads saying the government has to give you subsidies, the government has to give you food, and therefore will not enable them to introduce free competition and better the economic state of Russia, another threat on the Kremlin and another long-term interest for the Kremlin. Third long-term interest for the Kremlin here, we say that this makes Russian influence more accessible in the countries of Eastern Europe. Because again, those countries specifically who escaped communism, those are the countries for which communism is so toxic and for which communism is a political pariah. However, being pro-Russian is not. Those countries, like Latvia, having a 40% Russian population, like the Ukraine, and like others, have giant Russian-speaking populations, and being pro-Russian and even pro-Putin and anti-West is a legitimate political standing there. However, once you stand with communism, your party has no chance of making it. We say that a complete rejection of communism by Putin enhances his ability to have more influence in other Russian-speaking countries, and for those reasons, this would be amazing for the Kremlin. Thanks.
Thank you very much to the Prime Minister. Now to start the case for the opening opposition, I'd like to invite the Leader of the Opposition. Here.